It's an absolutely fantastic day in the world of Magic the Gathering. Out of nowhere, we have received a Magic Foundations leak that has left me with some interesting questions and high hopes. On top of that, Wizards of the Coast has just revealed an incredibly epic secret lair that is my favorite out of everyone that's been announced this year. Buckle up, because today it's nothing but good news.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles. My friends, I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a very fun installment of Mega Magic News. Today, we're looking at good times only. We have the leak of the upcoming MTG Foundation set, which has made me wonder about a few different aspects that we're going to discuss. On top of that, there is an incredible secret lair we're going to take a look at. But we'll start out with Foundations, and if you want to know more about the set, today I'm going to be doing a live stream over on my live stream channel where we go over all of the different details about Foundations, because for the last 3 months we've been getting a drip feed of all of these little details, and not everybody knows the set's going to be based on a light and dark concept and that it's going to be in standard for 5 years. But for me, Foundations represents something super useful for Magic the Gathering, more of a return to its roots. And by that I mean Wizards of the Coast is not prioritizing Commander with this set. What they're prioritizing is standard and an on-ramp for new players, which is something the game has been sorely lacking for a while. In Wizards' rush to try and feed the Commander market, we ended up in this scenario where standard and new players were left over by the wayside going, well, what about us? So Wizards of the Coast has said, you know what, we're going to condense the schedule for Bloomburrow and Duskmourn and insert Foundations in. That was never the original plan. Duskmourn was meant to go all the way until Christmas. So for me, it's very heartening to see that Wizards of the Coast is returning to what I consider to be the fundamentals of building the game, right? I'm somebody who worked at a game store for a very long time, on top of going to game stores for the last 30 years. So I very much know how important this is, and it's one of the reasons that standard has languished so much. This is very heartening overall, the situation. So when it comes to talking about this leak, before we do that, I want to show you the poster for the Foundation set. Take a look at it. We've got the 5-face Planeswalkers. This is going to factor into the discussion around the leak. You can see that we've got Vivian, Liliana, Chandra, Ajani, and Kaido, and they're all meant to represent the different 5 colors of magic, which is a very straightforward concept I appreciate. It's also interesting to note that Wizards of the Coast is returning to having way more Planeswalkers in a set. Having Commander be the forefront of Magic made them say, okay, let's look at legendary creatures more than anything because they're what's useful for Commander. Let's despark all the Planeswalkers. This looks like they might be walking that concept back a bit, I should say, and they're going to be leading more on Planeswalkers going forwards, or at least for the Foundation set. So one of the reasons I wanted to show you this is most of the Planeswalkers we see here are familiar faces that we've seen represent the different colors of Magic, but Kaido is a divergence. And one of the questions I have from today is, was Jace originally meant to be one of the 5-face Planeswalkers for the set? So let us move on to taking a look at the actual leak. This is the bundle box for Foundations, and there is a surprising amount going on here. At first glance, you might just go, okay, this is just tiny bones. What's the big deal? Well, take a look at all the different aspects of the artwork and you'll see that it represents a number of different characters. Now, when I said, I wonder what's going down with Jace and if he was going to be the face originally and they changed it, if you look at the artwork, you can see Tiny Bones here has made off with many objects, but he is running off in Jace's cloak. And we've seen Jace inserted into Thunder Junction. We saw him briefly in Duskmourn, and he was mentioned in Bloomburrow, so we do have a through line featuring Jace, but at the same time, he's not in that key artwork they have for it. But Tiny Bones himself is interesting all on his own. When you look at him, you go, wait a minute, look at his body. It's really fleshy. When we saw him in Thunder Junction, he was pure bones. Is this supposed to be an earlier iteration of Tiny Bones? There is a ton of flavor with this because he is thieving so many different items. If you look over all of the stuff that is randomly inserted in this artwork, you can see on his head he has Chandra's goggles, which is probably the funniest thing that he's stolen. He literally doesn't even have eyeballs. So what is he going to use the goggles for? And look at the gigantic sockets in his head. They're way too big for the goggles to mean anything. On his back, you can see that he's got Vivian's arc bow there. In his hand, he has one of Kellen's light blades, which is a very strange choice to me. I guess we're going to be seeing Kellen in Foundations. You can see in the background that he has dropped multiple things, right? A Johnny's double-headed axe is falling there in the background. Zamon's spellbook is flowing up in the air, and it looks like a crazy explosion behind him. Has he leapt through some kind of portal? Has Tiny Bones actually become a planeswalker? Like, it's absolutely wild, all of the different elements that are included in here. You can see little hints of Kaido with Hamoto. You've got the halo that's falling there as well. So the halo one is I'm the most curious about when it comes to the objects that he's holding, because is that supposed to represent Elspeth? Elspeth has a blade that has the halo inserted into the actual like hilt of it, right? So I wonder if this is supposed to just represent Capenna overall, if it's supposed to represent Elspeth specifically, or if I'm misconstruing this object and it's not Halo, although it feels incredibly likely that it will be Halo. Now, I do wonder when looking at this artwork, where is Liliana represented? All of the planeswalkers that we saw in the key art are represented in one form or another here, but Liliana seems to be missing unless that thing tucked in of Tiny Bones' belt is supposed to somehow be the chain veil. It's theoretically possible because remember, Foundations doesn't have a story the way that other sets do. It's a core set. So what you do is you get a random smattering of different people and different places all shoved together. However, it is possible that Wizards of the Coast might have some mini story involving Tiny Bones. I do want to know if Tiny Bones has somehow become a planeswalker. I do want to know why he looks more fleshy here. There is the simple argument that when it comes to things like Chinese markets, you're not actually allowed to show skeletons. So it might possibly be a scenario where they've just changed it so that they don't have to have different artwork when it comes to selling in that market. But I think the skull might already preclude that. This looks like an earlier version of Tiny Bones, or perhaps he's somehow found a way to take the magical objects that he steals from people and put them together in a way that lets him regrow his body. Maybe he's on some quest to become human again. Tiny Bones is a very, well, I mean, I don't know if he's a human. He's a tiny little thing, right? Tiny Bones is a lovable character, and they've done a really good job of making people like him without actually having him talk at all. He's never said anything, and all he ever really wants to do is be a scamp yoinking people's stuff. But it's not really clear why he does it, I guess, other than the straight up thrill of it. He was probably the best part of the Thunder Junction story. So this leak was shown on Amazon, and I absolutely felt like, yo, I have to talk about this. It makes me excited. So if you want to have more information about Foundations overall, again, I will be talking about that in a live stream later on today on my other channel, and it will be up afterwards for you to watch in case you miss it. So link will be down in the pinned comment there. Now, turning to the other news we have today, it's Secret Lair goodness. Wizards of the Coast has announced their new Extra Life Secret Lair, and it is pretty much perfect. There might be a few tiny flaws with it, but overall, I absolutely love it. So let's go take a look at it right now. we're starting out our wacky secret lair adventure with Mana Geyser. So this is 2 red and 3. It is a sorcery that says add 1 red for each tapped land your opponents control. So this was originally a common all the way back in the Mirrodin days, but over time people have actually started to use it, so Wizards targeted for a reprint. Now, as far as the concept of this secret lair, I'm going on record, I love this. This is based on old school pixelated video games, and I am definitely a dinosaur who played a ton of them. The artwork style evokes a number of different games all at the same time. The second Legend of Zelda, Wonder Boy, you've got a lot of silliness. Like up here, you can see Fibblethip's health, and this is Fibblethip facing off against a great evil. And if you actually take a look at the artwork, you might get a hint as to who his opponent is. But another aspect I find really amusing is the fact that a Johnny is essentially guiding Fibblethip on this journey. It gives me the whole Dr. Light vibes from Mega Man. I literally can hear the sound of the text coming on the screen while tick 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 while a Johnny is talking. And as a funny little side note, a Johnny is kind of malicious in this secret lair. It really seems like he is enjoying bad times happening to Fibblethip. Like, look at him. He's leaping off of a platform, and you've got the lava, and it's gonna go right in the Fibble hole, bro. Like, look at the way he's looking all down with the little frown there. Fibblethip doesn't have a lot of facial features, but even in this little pixelated version, you can see his dismay. It also evokes old Mario games where I kept getting smoked by those fireballs jumping up when you wouldn't expect them. So I will admit that the placement of the card's information is a little bit strange, but at the end of the day, we're talking about secret layers, and this is where you go crazy with it. So take a look in the background. If you haven't figured it out, look at that big face. Look at the horns over on the door with the sphere, the sphere, I should say, that is floating above it. And you might realize who Fibblethip is on his way to face off against. And note his health currently, because that's about to change. Apparently, he got mana-geized. Moving on to lightning bolt. So you can see Fibblethip's health now is at 1.5 hearts. He has already had a hard time just getting through the door there. So maybe he didn't actually make it across in his first jump and it took multiple attempts. But they've got Nicol Bolas here with his health bar up there, and he looks gigantic and epic. The scale of him versus Fibblethip is so much fun, right? So this is lightning bolt. 1 red for an instant. It deals 3 damage to any target. This is a card that's been in the game since the very, very beginning, and it is essentially the gold standard of burn. Doing 3 to any target instant speed for 1 red is pretty much impossible to beat, and people will use cards alongside it. Chain Lightning, which comes in at sorcery speed, that people can bounce back. So admittedly, they have put Lightning Bolt in a ton of different secret layers, but Lightning Bolt is never a useless card, right? It has maintained its power level over 30 years, although Wizards of the Coast has made a bunch more powerful stuff over the years. So in comparison, it doesn't stand out quite as much, but it still stands up. I love the platform that Nicol Bolas is standing on here. It totally makes me think of the Legend of Zelda 2, which was very different than the other Legend of Zelda games. And ultimately, a bunch of people didn't like it, but I loved it. I really dig the vibe of him bringing down this lightning. Like, look at it. Nicol Bolas with the big smile on his face. Yeah, get some. And he's blasting that lightning bolt down at Fibblethip. Fibblethip is normally just a 1/1. So the fact that he has 3 hit points is more than he normally would have. But the overall Bolas flavor, right? You've got the big Bolas in the background speaking to Nicol Bolas's ego. So the flavor is on point. And remember how I said that a Johnny seems to be malicious in this? Look at him. Look at how much happier he looks. In fact, if I go back and forth really quickly between the 2 images, watch his face. Look at that. He's like, yeah, get him, Nicol Bolas. It's like, bro, Whose side are you on? Aren't you the one who sent Fibblethip on this quest to take down Nicol Bolas? Which also seems like a hardcore jerk move, because a Johnny is way stronger than Fibblethip. And he's just like, yeah, get in there, buddy. Like, that's amazing to me. Now, the next card is where you see some genuine value in this secret lair. And that is Fierce Guardianship. So Fierce Guardianship is 1 blue and 2 for an instant. If you control a commander, you may cast this spell without paying its mana cost. Counter target non-creature spell. So this is obviously huge for commander players. Commander being the biggest format of Magic makes this a snap keep, right? This is the big card that's going to make everybody want to get this secret lair. But all of the cards in this secret lair are worthwhile. So I have to give Wizards credit for not just shoving a bunch of junk into this secret lair, especially since this one helps charities. So, oh, well, one charity, right? So it's the Extra Life charity. But regardless, this is a charity secret lair. So the fact that they're not holding back on it, and the fact that this one's print to order, is fantastic. So if you don't know what I mean by that, the other secret lairs that Wizards makes now are all just, here's a set amount, get them while you can before they're gone. We're not making any more. And we saw from the previous secret lair drop that the secret lairs are still kicking around. They're not really selling as much as they used to. And Wizards of the Coast is going ahead and like they're setting up a website where you can go and grab extra secret lairs that are kicking around. They're changing the nature of secret lair, but this is the older style of secret lair where they will pre-print some of them and send them out right away. But then the rest of the secret lairs, no matter how many you want to order, no matter when you order in the period, because you have from October 14th until November 16th or 17th to order this. You got a whole month. They will fulfill every single order. So that is fantastic in my opinion, because that means obviously more money for charity, and everybody who wants to get in on this will have the opportunity. With the breakneck pace of Magic the Gathering, it's easy to miss out on something like a secret lair, and then you find out about it and go, oh, what? Man, I would have totally wanted that. So, taking a look at the flavor vibe on this one, you can see Fibblethip going, no! And he's sending the lightning blasting back at Nicol Bolas. He's got another spell ready to go, but Fibblethip, I mean, let's be real. It is a little bit odd that it's a counter spell, but it's rebounding the lightning magic. So maybe originally they had a different spell intended for this secret lair, but they decided to juice it up, right? Because I don't think that there's any bounce or rebound swat. Maybe they were actually going to go for deflecting swat, maybe? You know what I mean? That's the red one that lets you change the target of a spell if you have a commander. Maybe they just at the last minute went, actually, let's go with Fierce Guardianship. So it does have a little bit of flavor weirdness, but I'm willing to forgive it because of how epic it is. Also, seeing Fibblethip casting eldritch powerful magic that's foiling Nicol Bolas. Nicol Bolas is a planeswalker who has existed for thousands upon thousands of years, from back in the day when planeswalkers were ultra god tier individuals who had mega powers, right? So it is pretty amazing to see Fibblethip going, no, I'm not having it. Also, take a look at a Johnny. Remember how I said that he's malicious in this? He looks really disappointed, doesn't he? He's like, aw, I thought you were going to get blasted, Fibblethip. So Fibblethip has made like no progress on Nicol Bolas' health up until this point, but that lightning bolt will hopefully change things. If not, there is some other magic that can be unleashed in the form of delayed blast fireball. So this is straight up Nicol Bolas getting taken out. Apparently it's somehow combined maybe with the lightning that is blasting out. It feels like if you take a look at this artwork and this one, obviously that bolt is leading up into this. So I don't know if maybe they had a different spell intended, because delayed blast fireball is a Dungeons and Dragons spell, right? And it definitely doesn't arc out with lightning and then turn into a massive blast on the chest like this. But it's pretty hilarious to see Nicol Bolas being thrown back like this. Kablam! Ah, you've defeated me! And you can see his health bar is completely wiped out. He's got the double little X's over his eyes in video game style. And another neat little thing is take a look at the jewel that's centered up in his head, up on his health bar. If you look here, it's centered, right? If you look here, it's actually falling. And in the artwork, the gem has actually fallen out of Nicol Bolas' horns. So if you were to go back and make a Nintendo game based on this kind of stuff, this has the right vibe. You see Nicol Bolas go flying back, almost like a Street Fighter dude getting KO'd, and then the gem falls, and you hear it clink, clatter on the ground, and then Fibblethip triumphantly walks up, picks the gemstone up, the music, dun, 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 dun. So Delayed Fire Blast is 2 red and 1 for an instant. A Delayed Blast Fireball, I should say. It deals 2 damage to each opponent and each creature they control. If this spell was cast from exile, it deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature they control instead. And you can foretell it for 6. So that is the concept of the Delayed Blast. Honestly, it's not the worst execution of a Dungeons and Dragons magic spell. But for me, this secret lair is a big winner. Wizards of the Coast has not announced the price. I'm expecting it to be at the price of most secret lairs, so it's going to range somewhere between $30 to $50, depending on whether you're getting a regular or a foil edition. But for me, this one is a massive winner. All right, my friends, that wraps up the video. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Big shout out to my patrons for supporting my channel. You guys rule. And just a reminder, I will be live streaming over on my other channel tonight talking about Foundation. So if you want to talk about that, magic, or just life in general, swing on by and say hi. Because for now, I gotta go.